they're basically uprooting everything to move to the Philippines. When they say na, oh, wow, if I did this all by myself, I would have gone.
Ja, wunderbar. Eine neue Folge von Perspektive Ausland. Jede Woche haben wir ja hier interessante Gäste, mit denen wir sprechen. Wir lernen hier viele neue Länder gemeinsam kennen und heute bei uns zu Gast der Tim. Der Tim ist ein Kollege von mir, unser Client Service Manager in den Philippinen, in Davao City. Ich habe ja hier schon auf dem Kanal vielfach von den Philippinen auch erzählt. Wir helfen dir dabei, in den Philippinen einen Wohnsitz oder Plan B Wohnsitz zu etablieren, inklusive Visa, Bankkonten, Wohnungssuche, Bankkonten auch in Singapur, da reden wir auch gleich mal drüber. Und Tim ist derjenige, der das alles hier vor Ort leitet in Davao City. Wir werden dieses Interview jetzt auf Englisch führen, denn Tim spricht leider kein Deutsch. Bitte dann also hier über die Untertitel gehen, wenn du hier in Deutsch das Ganze verfolgen möchtest. Aber das Interview selbst werden wir in Englisch machen.
Perspektive Ausland. Der Podcast für Unternehmer und Freiberufler, die es ins Ausland zieht. Egal ob Steuerplanung, Auslandsfirmengründung oder Lifestyle-Fragen. Hier geht's jede Woche zur Sache. Und hier sind deine Gastgeber, Daniel Taborek und Sebastian Sauerborn.
So, Tim, welcome to our podcast. It's nice to talk to you.
Good morning. Yeah, nice to talk to you too.
What we would like to know, first of all, is tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. So, yeah, I actually came from an IT background. I started basically one of the earlier IT batches. I started with the computer science thing on around 95. And then, I started really early, had my own company doing, outsourced work. And then we were doing really well.
So that was what you said, that was 95 or what?
The 95, I started studying about computers around 95. So,
all right. You don't look that old. You don't look that old, Tim.
I am 44. Thank you for asking. But yeah, so yeah, I started a company really early, made some experiences really early because we lost the company around the dot-com bust time around 2000s. But yeah, history is history. Then I moved around from IT. I became a professional chef for a few years. And then the rest, we met around the pandemic when my restaurants closed. And then, yeah, we've been together for 5 years.
That's right. Yeah, very good. How did you kind of end up in this work dealing with international clients? We have Germans now that we bring to the Philippines, Austrians and Swiss. So what kind of intrigued you about that type of work? How did that come about?
Well, yeah, we started off with other types of services with your other companies, but it actually, I had a little bit of experience because my dad was a lawyer, and then he was the kind of lawyer who people, just go to for answers. And then, if you needed something taken care of, people go to him. And then I think I got that from him because when we started speaking about, how to process these things like visas and everything, I had a pretty good background with understanding law terms, and I had contacts with lawyers, accountants. So it was almost second nature to me to, reach out to my contacts, ask, questions to clarify things. And then that's it,
Yeah, very interesting. So tell us a little bit, doing this work, dealing with international clients, dealing with German clients, how does your typical day look like? What do you typically do in a day?
Well, the first thing is basically check the email, since because of the time difference, I usually check when they send their emails, it's usually night in Germany. So in the morning, my time, I check it, and then whatever they need, if they need papers brought to immigration or the retirement authority or a bank, I just do it. So by the time they're up, it's like 9 a.m. in Germany, it's 3 p.m. here in the Philippines. So basically everything they need to be done here in the Philippines is done by the time they wake up. So, the time difference works in our favor.
So you are really the one, for example, who goes to the immigration office there in Davao City, talks with the officers in case there are any issues, questions regarding a visa, for example. You hand in the paperwork there. So you're really the one who is connected there in the Davao scene to make sure that all of these tasks are done.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. And if you think about it, the whole process of retiring in the Philippines or others, it's pretty simple, but it just takes a lot of legwork, which people don't realize from the start because, going back and forth between offices, this is something that is not easy to coordinate, especially when you're in London, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and, in the Philippines. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate that. Exactly. I mean, it always sounds easy on paper, but it's not so easy then when you have to do it. Tell me, Tim, so we have been working together now for, I think, 5 years. What has changed in Davao in the last 5 years during that time we've been working together?
What has changed? Well, I'm looking out of the window from the office right now, and, the growth in Davao is just surprising. I mean, 5 years ago, there's like 10, 15 new condos going up. So property is booming. Streets are safe. I mean, I remember Davao when I was a kid. It was not good, but now it's nice. It's pretty laid back, but it has its creature comforts. I mean, you can go have a great dinner almost anywhere, and then I guess.
So it's a city that's changing, where investment is done, where new things are built, new flats are built, new businesses started. So you would say it's a vibrant city. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's actually a development here right now. It's called Azuelo Cove. It's like a super luxe development. So I think units around the minimum cost is like $250,000 US. I mean, 5-10 years ago, that would have been, nobody would have bought into anything like that. Now we're seeing multiple developments that are,
right. So prices are
amazing.
increasing, which could be also, I mean, is a kind of a good sign, also a bad sign, right? I mean, inflation.
It's a bad sign for us. But yeah, I mean, it actually depends on the location because, there are locations where we would call it local friendly, where local hubs, but for retirees or other people who just want to kick back, relax, there are a lot of new options available. So I think that's one of the thought processes in some of the developments here in Davao. But other than that, I mean, there's really something for everyone if you think about it. There's low end, there's mid, there's luxe. So whatever you're looking for, we have it. So, and then life here is just a little bit more laid back than compared to Manila.
Tim, what also interests me is you alluded to it a little bit already, given the background of your family. So what do you personally like about this type of work, dealing with clients, helping them to establish themselves in the Philippines? So what do you personally enjoy about that work?
Personally, it's like it's the number one emotion I run across when they email me, we speak on the phone over Zoom, is that the anxiety is there because this is a huge step for them. They're basically uprooting everything to move to the Philippines. So with helping them, I mean, it makes me feel nice and warm inside when they say, "Oh, wow, if I did this all by myself, I would have gone." And then, because it's really scary.
Yeah, I mean, I've moved myself to different places. You're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, it is definitely a scary process. Coming back to Davao, how would you describe it in 3 words? 3 words only.
It's chill, it's progressive, and it's home. I guess that's the best 3 words.
Very good explanation. You already mentioned differences to other major Philippine cities like Manila, and there's also Cebu. What would you say are the differences? How is Davao City different from Manila, from Cebu? Maybe give us also some statistics. I mean, I do realize that Davao is like the second biggest city after Manila. How far away is it, for example, from Manila? Where is it in the Philippines geographically? Give us a little bit some background here.
Okay, so Davao City is on the southern part of the Philippines, while Manila is on the northern part of the Philippines. And what most people don't realize is that Davao City is just one big, huge city. As one of our clients said, it's a huge blob on the map. Manila, per se, is a combination of 11 or 12 different cities, and it's one of those mega cities. It's almost dystopian, if you ask me. I mean, you see mega progress in one end and then squalor on the other, and then there's traffic everywhere. While in Davao, we have at least the best of both worlds because the life here is really laid back. We have the creature comforts. We have top restaurants. I mean, if you're the type of person who likes to go to the beach, just go one direction for 15 minutes and you're at the beach. If you're the type of person who wants to go and, hike, go to the hills, the mountains, go to the other direction for 20 minutes, you're in the mountains. So, from the islands to the highlands, Davao City is pretty good. I mean, I've been to Manila. I've been to almost all of the major cities in the Philippines. They're nice to visit. But, Davao will always be home for me.
Give us a little bit some background on size. So what's the population of Manila, of Cebu, and what's the population of Davao?
Population-wise, I haven't really checked. But last time, I think Davao City was around 2.5 million. While Metro Manila, all of the 11, 12 cities in the NCR, it's like, 16, 17 million. Cebu is at around 4-5 million. But density wise, I think the important thing to note is the density of the people, because Davao is such a large place. Our density is very low compared to Manila, where I don't have the data, but think crowded.
It's very crowded, very busy. As you said, traffic is a nightmare. Also, one should say that, for example, Davao City has an international airport. You can fly to places like Singapore. I think you can fly to Dubai there. What other places do they fly to from Davao?
So right now, the current direct flights from Davao is Singapore, Thailand, Hong Kong, and I think it was Dubai or Qatar.
So if you go to Davao City, obviously a lot of people go through Manila. And how long is the flight time to Manila approximately?
Davao to Manila is about 1 hour 45, almost 2 hours, depending on the situation in the airports.
Okay, so that also shows you that the Philippines are, in terms of extension, quite a big country, right? So almost 2 hours flight from one city to another. Lots of people will go through Manila when they get there, but obviously you could also go through Singapore or Dubai or Qatar, which, could be quite nice considering the airlines that are available. Let's talk about cost of living. How affordable is kind of life for Western retirees or entrepreneurs in Davao City? I was speaking to someone, or we had someone on a YouTube live event recently, and he was basically telling us that he lives in the Philippines. He's German. He says that he would consider a cost of living in the Philippines, if you want to live there as a Westerner with a decent standard of living, around $3,500 a month. What would you say about that?
That's actually quite high. If you think about it, here in Davao City, you can get a good apartment or a condo for like $400-500 a month. This is a nice place near commercial centers, or you can even go as high as 1,000, 2,000 for one of those ultra luxe 5-bedroom places. But that's another story. But if for just somebody regular retiree, 3,500 is a lot, to be honest.
So you would say that's the top end. It's probably possible to live there well for less.
Oh yeah, definitely less. This isn't known by many outsiders, but the minimum wage in the Philippines, we have different minimum wages per city. So it reflects the cost of living, I guess. So in Manila, the minimum wage in Manila is around 30% more than here in Davao. So that should say something about the cost of living, where,
What is the
considering you're
minimum
only
wage
one
in
person.
Davao per month? So what is it?
4 pesos for minimum wage is around, I think recently it's around 580, something like that. It's around 500, if I'm not mistaken. And in Manila, it's almost around 800, 900. That depends. That's the bare minimum.
So what are we talking
So,
about here?
yeah.
US dollars or what?
Pesos. That's per day. Pesos per day. So that's around, so okay, let's do US dollars. That's around, for Davao City, the minimum wage is around $10, $11 per day for, the bare minimum. And then for Manila, the minimum is around, I think, $18 per day. So
Okay,
yeah,
so if you take
I mean,
Davao, let's say $11 per day, then it's around like say 300, 350 per month. It's considered the minimum
yeah, that's the
wage.
minimum.
Obviously, yeah, at the minimum
Mhm.
but that tells you something about the affordability. So we are saying really that for a retiree or even an entrepreneur with a decent kind of pension or kind of regular income or even investment income, that should be very doable. And we talk about more details like going out further on in the interview. That's an
Yeah.
interesting indication. One thing that's really important for people is safety. Now, I know that Davao City has a reputation of being very safe. Now, if you give me an
Yes.
honest opinion as an insider, so to speak, is that true? I mean, is that opinion justified? What do you say? What do you say as a local?
Yes, it is absolutely 100% true. I'm not saying this because, I live here, but it's a stark contrast. I mean, in Davao City, you go, if you're familiar with the jeepneys, that's our local mode of transportation. Only in Davao City, in the Philippines, you see people in jeepneys with their iPhones out,
Right.
using their phones.
Well, tell us what a jeepney is. What is that?
A jeepney is basically famous for those. It's basically, if you remember those old U.S. Army jeeps, so
Yeah.
they turned it into this long thing which fits around 16 people inside. So it's open air. There's only one entrance to the jeep, so it's like a minibus, but it's open. Everything's open.
Okay,
Anyways,
so
yeah. So
so you are saying people leave their iPhone open in the jeepney, yeah?
yeah. I mean, if you hold it there, you do the class. You're on a jeepney. People can just grab it, but not in Davao. If you do that in Cebu, in Manila, say goodbye to your phones.
Let's talk about some practical things in terms of safety. I mean, I give you an example. So I was talking to someone about South Africa recently. South Africa, a beautiful country, obviously. So they were staying in a hotel in Cape Town. Cape Town considered for South Africa pretty safe. And the restaurant where they were going for dinner was around, say, 200 meters away. Okay, and this was kind of
Mhm.
in the middle of Cape Town, right? So they said that both the hotel and the restaurant insisted that they would take the 200 meters to go to the restaurant and from the restaurant by taxi, because that is how dire the safety situation is at night anyway, right? So taking that as an example, how would that be in Davao? Would I be safe to walk the 200 meters to the restaurant from the hotel, or how is that? What's it like in
Yes.
Davao?
Yes. Well, if you know that the Philippines has a very vibrant, BPO industry, the call centers. So we service clients from the US, uh, Europe. So most of the time, the shifts end at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So if you drive around 2 a.m., you would see girls from, going out of their shifts, walking at 2 a.m. No problem. That's how safe it is here in Davao.
All right, very good.
And also, it's one of the few places in the world next to Singapore where you can leave your bag or your phone to reserve a table at the food court.
Right. The other thing that interests me is for a European, what do you think is the biggest lifestyle surprise when they move to Davao?
Biggest lifestyle surprise.
I give you an
Really thought
example.
about.
So, people, for example, who move to Dubai, the biggest
Mhm.
lifestyle surprise is that you can order everything on your phone, right? Let's say you have a headache and you need two aspirins, right? You just order it on an app and somebody on a bike comes and brings you two aspirins, or like you need like a light bulb, something like this, right? So everything. There's this very high service economy, very much sort of a highly developed service economy. So everything can be ordered online, and there's a service almost for everything, right? So that is the biggest surprise that some people have when they come to Dubai. What would be the biggest surprise in Davao?
Well, how about being able to wake up, go to the beach, go to a white sand island for breakfast, and then go home before going to work?
Well, that sounds amazing.
That's something. Yeah, I mean, we've done that. I mean, I've done that with some guests before. You know, they say, "Oh, we have a meeting. We have to go to bank at 10 a.m." It's like, so let's go to the beach, have breakfast, watch the sunrise. But yeah, I mean, Davao is very well. It's not small, but it's very accessible. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You can escape anywhere you want. You can go to different parts of the country via airplane very fast. You can rent a speedboat, go island hopping, or do practically anything you want when you retire for one home base.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful, and I believe also the mountains are quite close, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're really hardcore with the whole mountaineering thing, Mount Apo, the tallest mountain in the Philippines, is like 4, 5 hours away. And then there are small mountains like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I mean, I remember talking to you about, during the pandemic, we went hiking. We went hiking like 45 minutes away. But yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing. Coming back to the logistics of moving to the Philippines, can you give us an overview of the long-term visa options in the Philippines? And obviously, we want to talk about the tourist extension as well, but we talk about that afterwards. Obviously, you don't need a visa really to stay in the Philippines. That's one of the biggest advantages. You can stay there for 3 years without any visa. You can just extend your tourist kind of permission to stay. But we want to talk about the long-term visas now. So what are the three long-term options that we normally offer our clients?
Okay. Yeah, the first one is actually our favorite one. It's the SRRV visa. That's basically a retirement visa. It's the simplest one to get. The only hard requirement for it is that you have to be above 50 years old. Aside from that, the Philippine government needs a deposit. That depends again on whether you can provide a proof of pension or without. So if you have like a proof of pension, the government only requires you to deposit 10,000 US dollars into a government bank and hold it there for as long as you want to stay in the Philippines. If you don't have a proof of pension, the deposit is going to be $20,000. Again, you just hold it there as long as you want to keep the visa. And the good thing about this is if once you're here and you decide to, I need to a place to hang my boots in. So you want to buy a condo or an apartment. I mean, yeah, a condo at least. You can use that deposit to as a down payment or as a payment for that condo that you're going to be retiring in. So, the funds are still there. It's yours. And then if for some reason, after a few years you decide like, yeah, I want to go home, you can easily get that money back, that $10,000 or $20,000 deposit, and then just go home and give up the retirement visa. The other one is the SIRV, which is investor's visa. This one is a little bit more complicated because you have to put in 75,000 into a publicly listed company or a Philippine company. That there are certain companies that you can put money in. The thing is that, like, example, you put in money to a publicly traded company, and then the stock value goes down. You have to top it up because the visa requires 75,000 in value. So if you buy into a stock and then it crashes the next week, you'd have to put in more money.
You could also buy government bonds, correct?
Yeah, you can also do government bonds. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, but some government bonds take for government bonds, you have to put it at least for 3 years to be eligible for the SIRV.
So you would only really do that if you can't use the retirement visa and you really want a long-term visa and you really don't understand the tourist visa. I mean, if you really want that visa and you're not 50 yet, many of our clients are already 50, we have to say, then you would do that visa. Basically, it's also, you don't have to do anything. It's a passive investment. You invest in stocks or invest in bonds, but you have that sort of the risk that Tim just mentioned. So, and also the money you can't really use for anything else, like with the other visa. And I'm just making sure that everyone understands, a real estate investment is not considered a possible investment. So it has to be bonds, or it has to be stocks, or it has to be one of those business processing, outsourcing companies. So it's definitely, I'd say, more cumbersome. And yeah, I mean, only advisable really, you know, if this is what you, if you have set your mind on doing it, then you obviously you can do it and we can help you with it. But I mean, it's a bit impractical, I say, is the term.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if you're over 50, the retirement visa is the way to go. It's like very easy. It's a no-brainer actually. But if you're under, yeah, I mean, the only way. So the third visa is actually the Philippine employment visa. So you get this through an employer of record here in the Philippines. If you want to work for your own company, let's say an LLC in the US or Hong Kong maybe, and then you want to be based here. So that would be done through an employer of record, which will basically, you know, do the petitions for you to get a Philippine working visa for here in the Philippines.
Exactly. And we have you, even if you have the SRRV retirement visa, you are also allowed to work in the Philippines. So if you work for your own company, let's say you have your own company offshore and you wanted to work for that company in the Philippines, that what you earn in the Philippines, you have to pay tax on in the Philippines. So you have to decide, okay, I pay myself $1,500 in salary, for example, every month. So you basically pay tax on that in the Philippines. You can also do that with the SRRV visa. We help you to register for tax and then you declare that income in the Philippines. Ich sage das nochmal kurz auf Deutsch hier. Ich habe da ja auch schon andere Videos dazu gemacht. Ja, grundsätzlich in den Philippinen ist es so, dass sämtliche Auslandseinkünfte steuerfrei sind. Ja, also wenn du Krypto hast, wenn du Aktien hast oder sonst irgendwas, Zinsen, du bekommst Provisionen im Ausland. Also alles, was nichts mit den Philippinen zu tun hat, wo du nicht von den Philippinen aus arbeitest oder nicht aus philippinischer Quelle Geld bekommst, das ist steuerfrei in den Philippinen. Wenn du allerdings in den Philippinen dafür arbeitest, auch wenn es jetzt nur wenige Stunden pro Monat sind, dann musst du hierfür eine Steuer bezahlen für diesen Teil, der in den Philippinen gemacht wird. Deswegen empfehlen wir Mandanten, wenn sie jetzt in den Philippinen tatsächlich hier längere Zeit sich aufhalten, dort arbeiten wollen, für ihre eigene Firma, dass sie dann letztlich ein gewisses Gehalt in den Philippinen beziehen von ihrer Firma im Ausland und damit dann in den Philippinen Steuern bezahlen, das offiziell dort deklarieren. Und die Gewinnausschüttungen aus der ausländischen Firma sind natürlich dann wieder steuerfrei. Okay, so much about the long-term visas and also some of the tax implications that I just explained. We said before, one of the biggest advantages of the Philippines is that you actually do not need a visa. So as a German, as a Swiss, as an Austrian national, you can just arrive there, which is great because you don't have to prepare anything. You don't have to basically make any effort to get a visa, have any expenditure, any investment like you have to do in so many other places. In the Philippines, you can just arrive there. You can stay there. You can live there on a tourist visa up to 3 years. But there are certain differences why the long-term visa is still better. And I want to ask Tim, what are those differences? Let's take, for example, the SRRV visa. What are the benefits of the SRRV visa compared to the tourist visa if I just sort of decide to always extend my tourist visa?
Okay, so the number one thing is, I get this all the time, is that while it's very easy to enter the Philippines and, you know, stay as an alien with a tourist visa, the thing is you have to renew your stay your tourist visa after 30 days, 30 or 60 days, that depends actually. You have to go to immigration, get your paper stamp, you pay a fee, and if you, it's time consuming. If you look at Reddit, Facebook, or tourist groups, they would say you would waste one whole day in immigration, just getting a piece of paper stamp to say yes, you can stay another 30 days, versus the SRRV visa. When you get it, that's it. You just have to pay for the yearly ID cost. And then going back, if you're a tourist here, you cannot open a bank account unless you have this ACR card, which means Alien Certificate of Registration, which you can only get after you renew your tourist visa for 2 times. So basically, after 90 days of being in the Philippines. Once you have that card, you still have to keep going back to immigration to to have these documents stamped saying that yes, I'm still here, yes, I'm still staying, and so on. And then there's also the matter of exiting the Philippines. If you have the retirement visa, since you're technically a resident of the Philippines, so if you want to go to Thailand for a short vacation, go to Bali, go to Singapore to do some banking, you just leave the country, and you don't have to pay any of the taxes. While if you're on an extended tourist visa, you have to get exit certificates, stating that you don't owe anybody anything, you haven't worked in the country, you don't owe any taxes to the Philippine government. That's if you stay for more than 90 days. Well, it sounds complicated. It's just it's not really complicated. It's just more paperwork to deal with, which nobody likes to do paperwork nowadays. But yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So yes, you can stay in the Philippines, but you have to basically renew your visa every 30 days, every 60 days. That depends also on your nationality. So it is a little bit like Thailand in that regard. So it is kind of cumbersome, although it's possible with the ACR card. So the ACR card is like an ID card for foreigners. You can also get a driving license. You can also get a bank account, but if you have the SRV visa, for example, then you can get all these things without having to be in the country for 90 days, for example. You can just, once you have the visa card, you can just go to the bank, apply for driving license and all that. So there is an advantage in having actually the visa. Talking about bank accounts, so later on a little bit, we will talk about Singapore as well, obviously. But right now, with a Philippine bank account, obviously Philippines have a quite good banking system. Also, they are not part of the Common Reporting Standard, the International Information Exchange. So our clients like banking in the Philippines. Tell us how difficult or how easy is it for a foreigner to open a bank account in the Philippines?
Well, if you have the right documents, then it's quite easy. Let's see, for the SRRV, you need the actual SRRV card. The actual card, you just walk in, just like any local resident, just show them the card, and they would open an account for you. For tourists that stay longer than 90 days, you can open a bank account with the ACR card. So again, show it, and that's it. And for those on a work visa, just show them your work visa and they would open an account. Basically, that's it. And obviously, they would need a proof of address, so a condo, an apartment, or a rented house, as long as you have a utility bill with your name on it and the address, so they can send your card there, or your passbook if you wish, or your statements to that address. So yeah. Pretty simple.
Talking about banking, explain us a little bit about the banks. I mean, all banks, in many countries are the same, obviously, right? So it's just a bank. But I mean, what is kind of the quality of the banks, the typical service that they offer? Is there anything special? Would you personally, let's say you had $1 million, if you had $1 million, would you put the $1 million in a Philippine bank account, or would you rather say, okay, I'm going to go to Singapore and put it there? How safe are they? So give us a little bit of a background on the Philippine banking system.
Well, if I had $1 million, I'd probably put it into a bank like in maybe Singapore or Hong Kong, because what a lot of people don't know about the banks, even though the banks here are really good, I mean, most of the big banks like BDO, BPI, and Metrobank, these are banks with a global presence already because of the Filipinos all around the world. So, they're pretty stable. But, if worse comes to worse, Philippine banks are only insured up to 1 million pesos, so that's around 20,000. So, if you want to do wealth management and all that, I would definitely suggest putting it somewhere more stable, like Singapore, where, the insured amounts are a lot higher. And then also, but, if for daily banking things, for daily living things, I mean, Philippine banks are amazing. You can do cashless anytime. They have cards, everything. I mean, just like with any bank, I guess, in the world nowadays, our banks are pretty good. But yeah, but
So
for
like a day-to-day
larger
bank
wealth,
is good and sort of comfortable to use, easy enough to use. But I mean, let's say for proper wealth management, it's probably easier to go to Singapore, right?
yes,
And that's
exactly,
also one of
yes.
our options. We'll talk about Singapore a little bit later. And now, besides visa and banking, I guess the most important thing, obviously, is getting a place to live in Navarre. So what we do is we help our clients to get a proper residence there, right? To rent a flat or to buy a condo, right? What we don't do is just help them to get a sort of mailbox address somewhere. We don't think that's good, and that will only cause you problems. So we help actually clients to get proper apartments. Tim will help you to find an apartment in Davao to rent. It's your apartment. You can use it when you're not in the Philippines. We will go there, pick up your mail. We'll make sure that everything is okay from time to time, right? But it's your apartment. You have it. You can use it. Obviously, there are different types of apartments. Tim alluded to that earlier before. Well, Tim, that's a pretty good overview on the banks in the Philippines. And as I said, for many, the banks in the Philippines are highly attractive. They don't take part in the CRS. They have a good reputation. But you have just been to Singapore last week to meet our local banking partners. Why do you think that a lot of Western clients, especially once they have moved to the Philippines, quite like to go to Singapore and do their banking there, considering it's around 2 hours flight away from Davao? How realistic is it to maintain a banking presence in Singapore when you live in Davao? What's your experience there?
Well, if you already retired, I mean, if you already have a visa for the Philippines, and then you're technically a resident of the Philippines, you know, the banking system in Singapore is, I guess, one of the best in the world. You can just, I guess, when it comes to wealth management, I guess Singapore tops as, one of the best in the world, if I'm not mistaken. For if you're already at that level, if you really want the white glove service in banking, Singapore is just the way to go. So yeah, when it comes to Singapore banks, I mean, we have local banking partners over there, so we can introduce you to the banks. We can help you with opening your bank account in Singapore because, while Philippine banks are amazing when it comes to day-to-day transactions, making your life easier as a local, when it comes to wealth management, nothing really comes close to Singapore, especially with their white glove treatments.
Yeah, talking about white glove, Tim, I mean, would you call Singapore the Switzerland of Asia? And we had a quite interesting conversation after your last visit there, which was only, as I said, last week. So what impressed you most on your recent trip?
Let me give you an example. There's this DBS Treasures building where basically it's just, when I first went there to talk with one of the account managers, I was expecting, a bank, an actual bank. But when I got there, it was just like this giant lounge with, people sipping brandies, talking to their bankers, talking about how to manage their money. So yeah, I mean, that kind of
And
thing
they
is
give you a
unheard
nice
of in the
drink,
Philippines.
right? And you said you had a lot of coffee there, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where you sit down, they give you coffee, and not just like any coffee. It's really good coffee. So you sit down with your personalized banker, and then you talk about all of the details. That's not something you can get in the Philippines. I'm not sure it's Switzerland, but yeah, the whole VIP thing, because you really deserve it. You can really feel it in Singapore, especially with banking.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we recommend Singapore highly. The currency is very stable. It's backed by hard assets, including precious metals. It is a very good hub. Actually, the banking system has been molded on Switzerland. So yeah, a lot of things are similar, and level of service is also very similar. As Tim said before, it's easier to bank there when you live in Asia rather than when living in Europe, because when you live in Europe, especially in the European Union, there are certain restrictions in terms of the banking products that you can use. So the bank would like you better if you don't live in Europe. Also, because there is no information exchange in the Philippines, that means that the Singapore bank doesn't need to send information to the Philippines, which makes it easier for the bank to handle you as a client. So yeah, it's much better for you to live in the Philippines and open an account there. You will get a lot more services. You will have a lot more options also in terms of investments that you can do. So much about banking. Now let's come to another thing. Let's say somebody comes to the Philippines and they are new, they haven't really spent a lot of time there. There's obviously a restriction on buying land, but you can own condos. What would you recommend him? Is it better to rent a place, or do you think it's a good idea to buy something?
Well, I guess you rent. I mean, it really depends on the person because, you don't really know if you want to stay in one place. But what I would usually suggest is, to rent a place for at least, 6 months to a year, get acclimated, and if you really want want to stay, then get a condo, get a nice one, to, hang your boots, so to speak.
Which neighborhoods in Davao would you say are the best to move to as a foreigner? The most interesting ones, the most beautiful ones. What would you recommend? Which neighborhoods?
Well, again, that depends on what you want. I mean, there's this. If you really want to go to the beach, there are some beachside condo developments in Samal Island. You wake up and then you see the beach outside of your window. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But again, if you're also the type of person who you just can't get away from the commercial centers, we have a few condo developments here around the Bahada or Abriza area where, when you go down, the mall's right in front of your condo. And then there are other places where, if you want just to rent, you can get a nice house in the mountains for like, I don't know, less than $1,000 a month. These are all options. So again, that it depends on what you want and basically the budget. You can live in the beach, you can live on the mountains, you can live in commercial areas. It's not really something I've thought about deeply since I live here, but yeah, I mean,
and so obviously we'll help you to find a property there. Tim will make appointments with real estate agents. So when you come to the Philippines, you can visit these places, but also you don't have to come. I mean, if you think, okay, I want to have this, my budget is $800 a month, give me 3 options, and Tim will pick 3 options for you. And then it can all be done completely remotely. You don't really have to be there. Now I want to come a little bit to the sort of cultural differences between Europe and the Philippines. Tim, I mean, you have been dealing now with German people for at least 5 years since you know me. What are some of the cultural habits German, Swiss or Austrian people often misunderstand at first?
That's a good question, actually. Well, Filipinos were really accommodating people, I guess. So while it may look like we're subservient, I think it's the term. I mean, I remember you talking about, were you having Filipino staff before would always call you sir or boss or or whatever term but yeah, I mean, Filipinos are really laid back, I guess. But then there's also this a little bit of I think it can be a negative thing when colonial mentality where sometimes foreigners are often placed a notch higher than locals. But that's a different thing. But yeah, I mean, Filipinos are really warm, caring people that can't really say a lot about it. But yeah, I mean, you know what I mean.
I mean, I know exactly what you mean. I guess what you're trying to say is also that in Asia in general, that is true. My opinion, my experience at least, there is an avoidance of conflict, right? So
Oh yes.
while a lot of German people and Austrian people and Swiss people, they talk very directly. And it's not seen as being aggressive. It's just sort of, you want to get things clear. You want to make sure everyone understands. You want to make sure we're all on the same page. But I have realized that and understood that with other people, especially in Asia, for example, that is often seen as aggressive. And the way that, for example, many Asian people sort of communicate is seen as something, like being less direct or avoid a conflict. Would you agree that?
Yeah. I guess, yeah. Filipinos in general don't like conflict, I guess. We try to resolve everything if possible.
In a very diplomatic way, I guess that is the right. I mean, my experience with people from the Filipinos is they're extremely polite, extremely diplomatic. As I said, try to avoid conflict and keep their opinion to themselves often, right? While, I mean, I guess that's not often the case in Germany, and also in a negative way. I mean, I'm not saying that as an excuse, right? Often it is. I mean, some people accuse Germans of being like a bull, in a China shop, right? There is some truth to that, unfortunately. It can be, not everyone, but it can be. Continuing from there, in a Filipino context, what does being respectful mean?
Being respectful. Well, if there's one thing that many Filipinos value, it's personal space, I guess. So, we all have our rights, but personal space is something that it's seldom trespassed, I guess is the word. I mean, not like with, I'm sorry to say this, not like with other Western countries where people tend to forget that other people have personal space. They just want they want themselves to be correct. Yeah, screw everyone else. I'm number one. Well, in the Philippines, it's like, I won't mind you if you don't mind me. So, live what you
live
believe
and let
in.
live, yeah.
Yeah, live and let live. Exactly, yeah.
I'm taking that into consideration. How open are people in the Philippines to foreigners settling down there and becoming part of the community? Is that something they find easy, or do some people say, oh, wow, I mean, in Thailand, we all know the term farang, right? I mean, it's a kind of negative term, really, derogative, although it's kind of widely used now. It's kind of almost normal. Do they have a similar term in the Philippines? How do they see foreigners?
Actually, that's a funny thing. There are multiple ways of looking at it. There is this one very bad term in the Philippines. It's AFAM, AFAM. So it's basically, getting a white man or a foreigner as a boyfriend or a husband. But again, that's just one side of the spectrum. The other side is like, people actually want to settle down here, especially in Davao, because I don't know if I told you, but one of my best friends is actually German by descent. His father migrated to the Philippines in the 60s or 70s, and they have stayed here ever since. And then here in Davao, we actually have small enclaves, I guess, what you call it. We have Korean communities here. We have German communities here. I mean, we even have a restaurant, very popular one called Swiss Deli, which is owned by a Swiss guy, and then serves pretty good sausages, by the way. And then I mean, people are really open to foreigners moving over and contributing to the local community. That's one side. The other side is basically, getting a white boyfriend and moving to the States. But yeah.
We talk about that in a moment, a little bit more. What's your advice for someone who wants to build local friendships, right? And we all know this expat mentality, and I never liked that, for example. So when I lived in the States or in the UK and other places, I was never seeking out the expat community of expat Germans, because I always wanted to form local relationship with local people, make local friends, right? And And I also wanted my children to do that because, I mean, I moved abroad with them, so they have the international experience. They learn English, they learn a foreign culture, not just sort of be stuck in their own culture that I had just left. But I mean, there was a reason I left Europe,
Yeah.
I left Germany. It's not because I then wanted to be all around Germans in that new country, right? So what's your advice for someone who wants to build local friendships with people in the Philippines when they first arrived? How do they do that?
Diving, I guess. For me, it's diving because I used to dive every weekend. So, I guess the thing is, if you're passionate about any hobbies, like, diving, tennis, basketball, hiking, or whatever, there is an actual, there are communities here locally that, go to a local dive shop, meet the people there, and there, automatically you have your own new circle of friends. Because, if you share a common hobby or passion, it's really easy to start conversations, build contacts and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation. While we're on that topic of social life and relationships, there's a trend, and you have briefly alluded to it before. We can't ignore is the passport bro movement. Yeah, some people actually move to the Philippines, as you just said, for that reason. So these are men from Western countries looking for a wife, a partner, from another country. Let's say, for example, the Philippines, often a country that is considered to be less developed or poorer. It's obviously seen with ridicule sometimes. We don't want to judge here, no judgment at all. But in the Western countries, it's seen with a little bit of ridicule and also negatively in a way, because you think, well, these guys, they can't get a girlfriend here, so they go somewhere else. Even if they're a loser, they will still find someone there abroad. And my experience is that's obviously not the mentality often of these men who look for a partner or a wife or a girlfriend, right? It's also often about values, traditional family values that for them are easier to find in countries like the Philippines because people are more traditional and have more family sense there, right? Mm-hmm. So tell me about Davao, this passport bro movement. Is that something that gets a lot of attention? I mean, it gets a lot of attention online. Also, in terms of the Philippines, I did a little bit of research before, and we checked YouTube. There's a lot about passport bros in the Philippines. I mean, is it noticeable in Davao?
If you go to certain areas, yes. There are, in every city in the Philippines, there are certain areas where these passport bros or usually Americans, where they congregate, and then word gets around. So those looking for passport bros, they also go there. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So there are areas, yes, there anywhere in the Philippines. Actually, if you go anywhere in Asia, there are places in every city where these passport bros go to. I mean, just recently, last week in Singapore, somebody was calling somebody an angmo. In Singaporean, that's their local term for the white guy that the passport bro. But yeah, it's
the parang, the afam.
There's always going to be places. Afam in the Philippines, angmo in Singapore. Different names for different places. But yeah, there's always going to be places. It's fact of life, I guess.
So looking from your perspective as someone who lives in the Philippines, obviously as a man, and obviously so it's a slightly different setting. How much of the stereotype is truth and how much is just really social media and YouTube hype?
Good question. Good question. I think it's around 50-50. Half of what you see is true. Half of, I personally know of, expats who had really successful relationships with locals. And then on the other side, I also know of a few expats who got conned or scammed or whatever. But I guess it's all on the guy, I think, because wow, we're moving into a relationship, guys. But if the guy really believes that a Filipino girl who he has met for 3 hours is in love with him, then That's really something on this end. But if it's something, if it's something you develop for the traditional time, going out, I guess it's yeah.
Yes, I
Relationships
mean
aren't
definitely.
my
I mean, I think
yeah.
you're
But yeah.
totally you're totally right. I mean, that's it has to be viewed like that, right? So it's easy to fall in a trap, but obviously, it's
Mhm.
perfectly respectable and honorable to
Oh yeah.
have a long term relationship. What cultural realities, though, should foreigners understand before they date locally? So, someone, let's say a German person, comes to the Philippines and they are, they want to meet women. Let's say he's single, he wants to meet women. He's obviously he's not interested in exploitation, but it's interesting to build a long term relationship with someone. So, what are the tips that you want to give them?
Yeah. Number one is slow down. Nothing really. You're not as good looking as you think you are. No, no. No, to be serious, I mean, it's just, everything, I guess everything takes time. It's, think twice before doing anything. Look for male friends who can give you actual advice because the language thing, you might not know it, but, they're talking about you in the local dialect. And Philippines, we have hundreds of dialects. So they might be talking about, oh, let's take this guy for all he has, so on and so forth. But just be careful, take things slow. I mean, if you're moving to the Philippines, you're retiring. Just take things slow. I mean, nothing happens in a heartbeat, and then yeah, and just enjoy the ride, I guess.
So these relationships between foreign man and like local Filipinas, how are they viewed by the local community in the Philippines? Are they viewed as something positive or negative, or how is that seen?
I guess it's neutral, I guess, because again, there are relationships that aren't broadcasted. Just I mean, just a happy couple is a happy couple,
Like a
and then
genuine,
there's
talk
this
about a
other
genuine
relationship.
relationship, a genuine relationship
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
based on mutual respect, mutual affection,
yeah, exactly.
and
Yeah, and then
love, really, right? What you call love. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's this other relationship where red flags everywhere, where this foreign man and Filipina they're dating, and then the whole family is behind them. The guy has to spend for 10 people every time they go out. That's a big red flag. Or if the girl suddenly says, "Let's get married," after a week, those. I guess what I'm trying to say is the red flags are obvious, and then people will actually recognize those things. I mean, for normal relationships, people are fine with it. And then on the other hand, if they see a foreigner being taken advantage of, it's not really a stain on the foreigner end. It's on the local end. It's like, oh, that girl's taking advantage of this guy. It's not the other way around.
Yes, definitely. I mean, we have all seen. I mean, I've definitely seen that. Not really with Filipinas, but with like women from Thailand or women from Africa. Really, where the guy really was the victim in the end, right? So yeah, of course, everyone has to be really careful. All right. I mean, let's shift from dating to another passion of yours, Tim, which is food. You are known to be a bit of a foodie. You even used to run a restaurant before. Tell us a little bit more. Where's that passion for food coming from? Tell us about that restaurant that you used to run.
Well, actually, started. This was after my dad died, so I was a little bit lost. So I went to cooking school, and then after that, I worked at a hotel, one of the few five-star hotels here in Davao. Worked as a chef for a few years, and then yeah, after not not being able to stand people shouting at me morning until night, I opened up my own restaurant. So I love Chinese food, and then there's this thing from Taiwan that I love, this large fried chicken. So I opened my own restaurant here in Davao. It was doing pretty well, actually. We had like 3 branches, and then COVID hit. So yeah, everybody knows how that went. So when COVID hit, everything was shut down, and I found you guys online, and then rest is history. But Food-wise, Davao City, we're pretty good. I mean, the food here is amazing. One of the few places in the Philippines where you can get fresh tuna that was still alive in the morning and have it grilled in front of you. Seafood.
That sounds great. Tim, what's your absolute favorite Filipino dish, and what should every newcomer try first when they come to the Philippines?
Lechon. Lechon. It's basically a whole roast pig. We got it from Spanish. I mean, the Spanish brought it over. We perfected it, and it's amazing. The skin, super crispy. It's like candy. Then the meat, so succulent. I mean, just do a lechon. I mean, even Anthony Bourdain said it's the best pig in the world. So I'm not gonna argue with him. I love lechon. It's,
so is that like what? A suckling pig or what? What is it exactly?
It's a whole pig. It's a full-size pig. It's roasted over charcoal.
Oh, right.
Roasted for like 4 hours.
Okay. Also Spanferkel, ja, Leute. That's very good. So we talked about like making social connections before making friends. Do you think that the food culture in the Philippines makes it easier to integrate socially? I mean, is that a good place to meet locals to learn about the local culture?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, we have these small food joints, the unofficial restaurants. So we call them carinderias. So it's like a small food, like usually it's a house or a small stall with like 20 different dishes all laid out in small pots where you just point to, I want this one, I want that one. And then mostly, people just sit down and eat. So yeah, that's one of the places if you really want to speak to locals about food and stuff like that. And the thing is, if you're a foreigner and you eat in one of those eating places, 110%, the guy next to you will talk to you about your food. So he's gonna be like, "How do you like this? How do you like that? Oh, you should try this. You should try that." Yeah.
So it's an icebreaker.
Yeah, usually, yeah.
Well, very interesting, Tim. Thank you very much. So I have 2 questions left. Almost the final question is this: what do you personally love most about Davao, and what do you think will surprise people who move there the most?
I love Davao because it's laid back. I mean, I mentioned this earlier. It's a big city. It's a little big city. We have every creature comfort you can think of. We have delivery. We have restaurants. We have from low end to high end. You can get anywhere 15, 20 minutes. You can go to the beach anytime you want. You can go hiking anytime you want. Doing business is very easy here in Davao City as a local. And then, it's very safe. It's one of the best places in the Philippines to raise kids in. Yeah, I mean, basically it's home for me. If ever I want to go to other places in the Philippines, like Boracay or Manila or Cebu, it's just an hour or so away by plane. So it's home base. It's home. Everywhere else is just a pit stop.
Well, that sounds very convincing, Tim. So we can really see and understand that you love your home city. But here's my very final question. So, I mean, obviously we help people to move to the Philippines. So for them to move to a different country. Now, if it were up to you to move to a different country, if you could choose one spot and say, okay, if I ask you if you can live, what particular place other than the Philippines would you want to live? Would you want to move to? What would you say?
I would say China, but I love Chinese food. I mean, I can't get enough of Chinese food. The actual real Chinese food, not the takeaway food that's laden with MSG. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, China is nice. I mean, the food's great. They're one of the most technologically advanced places in the world. Language, of course, there's the language barrier. See, I already mentioned the food, but yeah, the food. People there are pretty good. And then technology, I guess China. And a close second would be Singapore. The only reason I'm picking Singapore over China is that I cannot afford to live in Singapore. It's expensive.
Yeah, it is very expensive. Well, thank you very much, Tim, for your time. That was very interesting. I'm going to say something in Germany now to our audience. Ja, so viel unser Interview mit Tim. Wie gesagt, Tim ist derjenige, der vor Ort hier in Davao City die Dinge für uns regelt, für unsere Mandanten organisiert. Das heißt, wenn du auch dich dafür interessierst, in die Philippinen umzuziehen, wir haben ja unsere Services jetzt hier beschrieben, dann wird Tim derjenige sein, der dich dabei unterstützen kann. Ich packe nochmal einen Link zu unseren Philippinen-Services hier in die Beschreibung dieses Videos mit hinein. Da kannst du im Detail auch dazu lesen. Nimm dann gerne Kontakt mit uns auf, einfach ein E-Mail schicken. Die Kontaktdetails stehen auf der Webseite drauf oder ansonsten natürlich auch ein Beratungsgespräch buchen. Aus unserer Sicht, wie gesagt, die Philippinen sind sehr interessant. Eins unserer Top-Spots aufgrund der Gründe, die wir jetzt in diesem Interview hier angesprochen haben, aber natürlich auch schon in anderen Videos und Folgen, die es hier auf unserem Kanal gibt. Es freut mich, dass du uns zugehört hast bzw. zugeschaut hast. Bis zum nächsten Mal.
Bist du Unternehmer, Freiberufler oder Investor? Zieht es dich schon lange ins Ausland? Mach heute den ersten konkreten Schritt in eine Zukunft mit mehr Geld und mehr Freiheit. Buche ein Beratungsgespräch mit Sebastian und seinen Kollegen. Unsere Kanzlei unterstützt Mandanten wie dich dabei, deine Steuerlast legal zu reduzieren, Vermögen aufzubauen und zu schützen und deine persönliche Freiheit zu maximieren. Profitiere jetzt von unserem Fachwissen und unserem Netzwerk. Gehe zu mandatierung.com und werde Mandant unserer Kanzlei.